Welcome back, podcast listeners. This is a special episode because for the first time I have a guest, and this guest is. Do you mind if I say your name, Mike? Is that okay if I say
Go for it. Go for it,
Mike
Raywat.
Donofrio, who I know as Mikey Pop Up. So that's what my spouse and I call him because that's what he is online. And Mike and I have never met in real life or even
It's
virtually,
crazy, eh?
entirely social media, right? It's crazy.
Entirely for 3 years.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
by the
that's
way,
pretty neat.
this is going to be put up on YouTube and via audio on my podcast. So for those on YouTube, my camera is here, but my computer is down here. So I'm looking down here at Mike, and the camera gets to see my forehead while I'm doing that.
There we
So
go.
I want to say a little bit about Mike. Mike is a working man. He got a real job, works with cars and stuff, but smarter than most scientists I know. And I say that quite genuinely. The insights he's put forth to me privately on matters relating to COVID, to physics, to the topic of UAPs, which is what we're going to talk about today, has been really quite insightful. And so I value his insights on this topic. And as my listeners know, I'm an epidemiologist, which is not, a UFO related topic, but I've had an interest in this subject for a long time. And what I hope comes out of this conversation is a rational scientific way forward to think about some of this without getting too woo and without deviating too much from the straight and narrow. But who knows? Anything goes here.
That's right.
Any opening thoughts, Mike?
No, I think the whole UAP phenomenon, we were talking this before, there's a stigma attached to it, right?
Yeah.
There is a, if you talk about it, it's, you're a conspiracy theorist, or which couldn't be further from the truth. And I'm not to discredit to say there are conspiracy theorists who, government takeover and all that kind of stuff, but there is clearly something happening.
Something's
And
going
I
on.
and something is going on, and the evidence is there. And I think science has to follow the evidence, and it deserves to be looked into.
Look, not to get too ahead of ourselves here, but as some people might know, there was a big hearing that occurred in U.S. Congress recently on this topic, and a few weeks or months earlier, NASA opened up an investigation into this topic, and many of my colleagues were wondering, well, what kind of waste of time is this? And I see this as an opportunity to flex your scientific muscles. If there's nothing going on, here's our chance to apply
Absolutely.
the scientific method to prove that that's the case. So we
Absolutely.
shouldn't shy away from this. It's nutty. Oh, I've got my WhatsApp alerts going on in the background. Let's turn that off. Let's turn that off. So let me begin by asking you, like, what are your reactions to the UAP hearings that came out?
It's almost like justification for, I'm sure you kind of feel the same way. It's like this is being brought forth to the public, and everybody's talking about it, not just what I call
Not
like
just us.
us nerds, right? It's like, oh my God, did you hear the government said they have aliens, right? And that's like, well, they didn't really say that, but they admitted, very credible witnesses under oath. I should say that should be the number one thing. These guys were under oath, and they're highly decorated people. And with what they came forward is unbelievable. And I think the public kind of saw that, and they said, like, look, this is credible. And
Yeah,
like,
that's a really good point, and I've kind of touched on the credibility issues a little bit on social media and got some blowback for it. These are exceptionally credible people, far more credible than
mhm,
you and I. You know,
absolutely, well,
like David
absolutely,
Fravor went to Top Gun. These are people that
yeah.
the U.S. government, anyway, trusts with the most expensive and powerful machines under their roster.
Absolutely. And, Grush didn't get security clearance because he was, unreliable, right? He had some of the highest security clearance you can get for the US government, right? So
Which is not to say that we must believe them reflexively. It is
that's
just
right.
to say that we should take the claim seriously and allow an investigation to proceed. Which is
Absolutely.
why I cannot stand this narrative unfolding that, what is this nonsense? Why are we wasting time on this? We're wasting time, or we're spending time on this because these are highly trained, credible individuals making extraordinary claims. And
Yes,
if anyone's going to make extraordinary claims worthy of investigation, who better?
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. These aren't just some random people, your buddy's brother in his basement, right? These are credible people. So yes,
Yeah.
it deserves investigation.
It's funny, not funny at all. Like some people have reached out to me and said, well, should we also investigate claims of ghost sightings? My reaction is, well, if those claims of ghost sightings are being put forth by multiple Navy aviators with high level
Mhm.
clearance and a high level
Absolutely.
intelligence officer with
Absolutely.
claims of documented evidence of this, then yeah, we probably should.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And these whatever we can call them, we'll call them UAP, are in our airspace, right? So are
Maybe.
they, that's what I mean. So like they are whatever it is
Yeah.
here. It's been, well documented. Some of these craft are 15,000 miles per hour caught
Yeah.
on radar, right? We don't have
Right.
anything.
So let's get into that. Let's get into that.
Yeah.
So, for the people on Twitter and so forth who mock this whole scenario without going as deep into it as you and I clearly have,
Mhm.
they will claim, well, this is delusional and this is made up. And so I have a list of the possibilities of what these things are. So at at the one end, this is delusion. If it's
Yes.
delusion, that's worthy of investigation because if millions of people are being deluded, well, we need to investigate this mass psychosis.
Mhm.
Two, this is a psyop of some kind put forth by intelligence officers. If that's the case, then this needs to be investigated because we can't stand to have a psyops going
Absolutely.
underway.
Yeah.
Three, these are time travelers from the future. In which case, we better investigate because that's
I would hope
fascinating.
so.
Four, these are ancient humans, like a breakaway
Mm.
human civilization that's been with us a long time, that somehow is
Mhm.
parallel to our civilization, but hidden, but they're still human
Mhm.
beings. Well,
Mhm.
that is like really fascinating. And I'd like to, if that's the
Very
case, then we
fascinating.
should find out about that. Most boring is that these are aliens.
Mhm.
I think that's probably least likely, frankly. But
I think so too. I think
yeah,
so
it's not
too.
too much. We call that the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Then
Mhm.
there's the crypto terrestrial hypothesis, which is these are, again, not humans, but still present on this planet. And you could be an extraterrestrial, and I guess been on this planet for a long time as well. Then there are the ultra terrestrial hypothesis, where we have multiple Earths coexisting in the same space but different dimensions, and something like
Mhm.
nuclear technology has opened gateways between
Mhm.
those worlds, and who knows. But the thing that really intrigues me is the possibility that we live in a simulated universe, and these are just the system administrators sometimes coming in to reset the buffers.
The Matrix. Yeah, the Matrix. Yeah.
Any one of those possibilities deeply fascinating, including the delusion aspect of it,
Absolutely.
the mass
And they
psychosis.
all and they all deserve investigation, no
Totally,
matter
totally.
what way you put it.
There's a tweet from uh, Professor Brian Cox that caught my attention this past couple of weeks, and I'm a big fan of Brian Cox. I don't know if you know who that is.
I think I follow him on Twitter,
Oh,
actually.
good. British
Yeah.
physicist, used to be in a boy band, really fantastic communicator. I wish I'd see him when he comes to town. I love his shtick. He's a great educator and so forth. But he was mocking the UFO UAP claims, which is his right, frankly, to dismiss it.
Mhm.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, he was asked to discuss and explain away the flare footage of the Tic Tac and of the gimbal UFOs. I think as most people who listen to this podcast would probably be familiar with that. And his
Mhm.
response was, "I don't have enough data to have an opinion on that," and that infuriated me.
Yeah. That's like that in itself is anti-science, right?
Yeah, on the one
I think.
hand, you're mocking the claim. On the other
Mhm.
hand, you refuse to engage with the data on which the claim is made.
Absolutely.
That's unfair.
Almost ideological, right?
Right, right. So I relate that to my scenario. As you know, as most of the listeners know, I'm a vaccine guy, and I'm
Mhm.
always touting the benefits of vaccination. And the anti-vaxxers come at me with all kinds of claims, and I do dismiss them and I mock them, but I do
Mhm.
engage with the claims. I do
Yeah.
engage with the data, and to show that
Mhm.
this is why you're wrong. And so it falls in the same camp. You're not allowed to dismiss something unless you also address the data,
That's
however
right.
that data is presented. Which brings me to The question of, is there actually data?
Yes. Well, there's something, obviously, right? The famous Tic Tac footage, there is no heat signature coming from this craft.
The
There
subject.
is no heat signature. There are no wings, so it doesn't use conventional lift the way our aircraft does it. And not to mention the sheer acceleration that was caught by an F-18, a US government fighter jet.
Right.
If we were able to accelerate that with the technology that we have presently, there would be no pilot left. You know what I mean? So I want to know is that is worthy of investigation, and
Sure.
that cannot be dismissed, right?
Maybe it's a projection, a holographic projection of some
It
kind,
could be.
and
Absolutely.
that's interesting as well.
Absolutely.
But so that's a piece of data, absolutely.
Mhm.
The criticism of David Grush's testimony is it's hearsay,
Mhm.
and it is hearsay. But
Absolutely.
what's wrong with that?
Yeah, what's wrong with that? It's also I think for him to testify under oath, and I think he mentioned something about 40 people he had, interviewed.
Yeah,
Um, for a guy like that to put his entire reputation on these people, I would imagine those 40 witnesses are highly credible. And, he doesn't come off like I said, his resume doesn't come off as
yeah,
some quack, right? So, if he's going to tear his entire life apart, which he clearly has done
it's
that,
done. Yeah,
there is something there,
right.
again, that's worthy of
Yeah.
investigation, right?
Unless he's profoundly mentally ill, which
Uh,
is, I
that's another
assign.
possibility.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah,
I assign a low
yeah,
probability to it, but it's possible.
mhm, absolutely.
It's yeah, but the hearsay argument is fascinating to me. The overwhelming mass of UAP UFO claims is eyewitness testimony.
Mhm,
The photographs are famously blurry and unreliable, as is the video
absolutely.
footage,
Yeah.
which is
Neil
killing.
deGrasse Tyson is famous for
Right,
criticizing that, right?
and we can talk about why that is in a second.
Mhm.
But I mean, the courts famously regularly convict murderers on less evidence than
That
millions of
is true.
eyewitnesses.
I've never thought about it in that way. That's absolutely correct.
So at the very least, hearsay is the beginning of wisdom, and then
Yeah,
we follow through with more investigation. I just
absolutely.
find that hilarious that he didn't produce, he didn't roll into Congress dragging a UFO with him. Therefore, we should
Yeah,
dismiss him.
yeah,
Got
exactly.
to start somewhere.
I don't think the world's ready for that anyway.
No. And by the way, I'm quick to say for people about to dismiss this podcast that, hey, I don't no idea what's going on. Like
I don't think any of us do.
maybe nothing's going on. I don't
Mhm,
know. But the point that you and I are both trying to make here is it is not worthwhile mocking the situation and dismissing it when we
mhm,
should be actively investigating it. And then we can dismiss it and mock it if need be.
absolutely.
But not readily.
No.
I was trying to think of, you know, inst again, as a scientist, I keep thinking about the lack of humility in science. And I used to defend physics so much. Physics has been kicked on its ass so many times for its hubris
Mhm,
that it learned to be more accepting of new ideas. The change from Newtonian physics to Einsteinian physics and Einstein to quantum mechanics and so forth. Each time we thought we had it figured out, and each time we're wrong. And so we learn, wait, if someone's got a fantastic new idea, let's hear them out. So when I was a physics student, there was a guy named, I think it was Fishback, who thought he had discovered the fifth force, Fishback's fifth force. The four fundamental forces are strong nuclear, weak nuclear, electromagnetic, and gravity.
mhm.
And the fifth force doesn't exist apparently, but Fishback claimed to have done so, and he was doing a world tour, and we were all so excited to hear from Fishback. It didn't pan out, but back then, the idea of a fifth force revolutionizing physics was great. Nobody
Mhm.
dismissed it, nobody mocked it because physics was ready to be dumped on its ass. And I'm sad to see that humility has been lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like Einstein didn't believe quantum mechanics when he first heard about it. So the term spooky action at a distance, which is quantum entanglement, was Einstein's label of this phenomenon as a way to dismiss it. Oh, it's spooky action at a distance. But Einstein was wrong. It's a real
Yeah,
thing. And it wasn't until the 90s that we discovered dark matter and dark energy, which constitutes about 90% of reality.
that's
So
right.
so bit by bit, we understand less and less about the nature of the world. So again, it frustrates me when people say things like, if these are indeed extraterrestrial craft, it's not possible because the nearest extrasolar planet is 4 light years away, and that's far too far to send something. It doesn't make sense that we would rely upon our limited understanding of physics to explain away something that might be beyond our physics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We might not know something that they know, or something like that, right?
It's as
It's
simple as
obvious,
that.
right? It's as simple as that. It's science forever changes with new data, right? And new discoveries. And to not take that into consideration is not science, in my opinion.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I am, though, buoyed to see people like, Avi Loeb of the Galileo Project. He's a fairly senior Harvard
Yeah.
astronomer, taking this seriously. And again, he might be wrong. That's
Yeah.
fine. It's
I
fine.
think he took a hit with the Moa Moa.
That's
Um,
true. More. Yeah.
he did his credibility maybe took a hit,
Right.
but you are correct. He at least he is taking it seriously, right?
Yeah. But you're right. But you make a good point there.
Mhm.
What I object to is certainty. And he
Absolutely.
expressed certainty in the other direction, which
That's
was
right.
not a wise thing to do. And I'm being very careful here. I think we both are, not to express certainty.
That's right.
You know,
Because we don't know. At the
we
end of the
don't,
day, we don't.
or do we, Mike?
That's what makes it so interesting, right? Yeah,
Maybe you and I do know some things.
maybe.
I was, you know who Gary Nolan is?
No.
He's a scientist who claims to have worked on. I think he's claimed to have worked on recovered materials. I'm not sure exactly, but
Okay.
he's very forcefully claims to be 100% certain
Hmm.
that these are extraterrestrial craft.
Hmm.
But he puts forth an interesting scenario. Again, maybe he's nuts. I don't know. I don't know the man. But
Hmm.
he got me thinking about a scenario in which it is possible to have these things with us that does not break any physics laws, that doesn't require any new physics.
Hmm.
And we have to think about von Neumann machines. You know what a von?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what
I
that
do.
is.
Yes,
Of course, you're a Star
absolutely.
Trek fan. Look behind
Yeah,
you
absolutely,
there.
absolutely. You know, I don't know if you want to explain them. I can explain them, or
Please
you
go
can
ahead.
explain. So the theory is we could send up a little robot that has the ability to basically mine and expand on a planet to get more resources. And then from there, it will send to the next planet, to the next moon, to the next solar system. And the theory is that in, 2 or 3 million years, we will have expanded our intelligence outward. And people will say, "Oh, 2.5 million years, that's a long time." But in
It's nothing.
terms of the universe, it's a blink of a second. So it's kind of a neat theory
It's a
that's
great
actually
theory.
plausible.
It was put forth by John von Neumann, one of the Manhattan Project scientists, I believe.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
amazingly, there is a project underway right now to build von Neumann machines precisely for this reason, to send them out to explore the galaxy. So if we're doing it with our crappy technology and our crappy resources and our crappy economy here in the 21st century,
mhm,
it's not implausible that another civilization a few million years senior to us could have done the same thing, because again, universe being was it 13 billion years or so, a few civilizations probably arose prior to ours,
mhm.
and someone
Absolutely.
did the math and figured out that it would take about 5 million years to cover the entire galaxy using von Neumann machines. That's it, just 5 million years, traveling at 10% the speed of light, which is really attainable, easily attainable
Mhm.
under today's physics using a variety
Absolutely.
of propulsion techniques. Now, imagine that one of these probes or handful arrived here X millions of years ago. Why not? Because it would have arrived everywhere. Why not
Mhm,
here?
mhm.
And it just uses the resources here to occasionally replicate itself to sustain a presence and to collect data. it wouldn't improve or evolve in technology because it came with what it's got. It's not getting better. And this would sort of explain why what people have been reported seeing really hasn't changed in decades. If you look at our technology, it's advanced in leaps and bounds
Absolutely.
over the decades, but this phenomenon seems not to have done so. This would explain that. And it might even explain the supposed organics, like the grays and so forth. Maybe they're just constructed von Neumann machines to conduct this.
Absolutely.
Again, I
It's
don't know.
possible.
I'm not
It's
saying this is the
possible.
case. It's just I'm just putting forth a scenario that explains this within the limitations of known physics.
But like you said, our technology now, and you think about it, we're only, what, 100 and when did the Wright brothers fly? 19 or
19,
no, 8
yeah. No, it was 19 something.
19. No, that's not right. Late 1800s, the
I
Wright
think it was
brothers?
early 1900s.
Early 1900s.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
So we're 100 years into even being able to fly.
Yeah.
So imagine a society, like you said, that's 2 million years ahead, and look how far we've come in 100 years, right? So if we have the technology to do it now, us in a million years, if we're still here, um, the sky's the limit. No pun intended, right?
Here's an interesting thought experiment. If you're living, in the year 1 AD somewhere in Europe, and you have to travel 100 miles, what's the fastest way to do so? Horseback, right?
Yeah,
If you're living 1000 AD, same task, what's the fastest way to do it? Horseback. If you're
horseback,
living 1700s, what's the fastest way? Horseback.
horseback.
1800s, well, train. 1900s, well, plane. 21st century, spaceship. Suddenly, the rate of explosion of technology is exponential. It's frightening.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's and with the dawn of AI, it
Absolutely.
only makes things more exponentially growing at the same time, right?
So let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Uh, Dangerous question. What do you think's going on?
Oh, that is a dangerous question. So I believe in the theory of a multiple dimension
Hmm.
um, explanation for the U. I think I don't know if people listening to this would be knowing of the Skinwalker Ranch. I think that kind of phenomenon, that's what's happening there, is
Yeah,
all connected to everything.
I think
I
you're
I,
right.
be- I truly believe that there are multiple dimensions on the same planet or something like that. So that's what I truly believe. And it just it fits the evidence that is presented so far.
Yeah, I really dislike it when people try to reduce this to aliens. It's
Yeah, because it
something.
might not be, and I actually don't think it is.
Yeah,
I
I don't think
think
it
it
is
I
either.
think it are they could still technically, yeah, maybe you could say they're aliens, but I think maybe interdimensional travelers more.
Sure. I think it's I think there's a high probability this is mass delusion.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
absolutely could be.
But
Absolutely
I
could
also
be.
think there's equal high probability this is something that is a product of, I'm going to say human civilization, but I don't necessarily mean our human civilization.
No,
I
absolutely.
suspect that we might be sharing
Yeah,
this planet with something else. But
I
also,
suspect too.
sorry, I cut you off there. But increasingly, I'm of the opinion that consciousness and perception is a big part of not just this, but a variety of phenomena. All of the paranormal phenomena, which we can't ignore as scientists. We can't ignore the fact that millions of people report all kinds of strange experiences and phenomena, have something to do with our inability to perceive deep reality.
Yeah,
We are limited by the shallowness of our senses, and we never truly engage with reality. We always have this buffer of what our senses give us, but true reality is far more complex and deep. And the example I always give is we can't see certain colors on the spectrum. Doesn't mean they don't exist or affect our life, but we can't perceive them anyway. There's probably a lot more about our existence that we cannot perceive. So this kind of relates to what you're seeing about dimensions. There's
absolutely.
a thickness to reality that we have yet to plumb.
Mhm. Absolutely. It
Um,
might explain too why there is an increase in phenomenon with the dawn of nuclear weapons,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. That's a big
Um,
one that amazingly the UAP hearings did not touch on this round.
yeah, I was very surprised at that because it really took off. The famous movie that's out right now, right?
Right.
Oppenheimer, right?
Yeah.
Like him and Einstein, there are some cryptic quotes from them about extraterrestrial or,
Sure.
the phenomenon,
Yeah.
right? They, I don't know what they believed, but there are different quotes from them.
I mean, it did really take off. That could be again, a case of being more culturally relevant or having a more dedicated communications society that allows us to report these sightings. But we
Yep,
have sightings going back centuries, if not millennia, as you know.
absolutely.
As you know, like the ancient Greeks reported flaming shields above their battles.
Yep,
What are flaming shields?
yep,
Or
yep.
my people, the Hindus, talked about the Vimanas, which are literally the way they're described in ancient texts. Literally, they're freaking UFOs.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
absolutely.
no other way to
Absolutely.
describe
Like
them.
there are cave paintings of UAPs, like going back thousands of years, right? And in multiple areas of the world.
Right.
So pre-travel, right? So they're like for one person to travel the world back then and paint these pictures on every culture on the planet, that the probability of that is almost impossible.
Right. And again, we are not saying that these are little green men. Just
No,
saying something's going on.
something's going on.
And it infuriates me that we're not allowed to look into it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's like I said, there is a stigma attached to it, right?
It's crazy, man.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so how do you think this plays out? I mean,
Ugh.
in the public sphere, is this going to be quashed in the next few weeks? Are we going to have,
So
more
so
hearings?
so I don't know because actually my wife made a valid point. She said to me, she said, uh, the world's been through so much in the last 5 years. um, more
Mm,
specifically the last 3 years, but
yeah.
housing market and COVID and the ongoing struggles. And she said, this hearing happened, and it all but said, these things are real, and nobody cares,
Nobody cared.
right?
That was so
Nobody
telling, wasn't it?
cared because
Nobody
it's
cared.
like we've already been through so much. You know what? Add that in there. That's okay, right?
Right.
But I truly believe that this is the first major opening of a door
Hmm.
that will lead us to some sort of disclosure. I don't know if we'll ever get full disclosure,
Yeah.
but um,
Here's my fear. My
mhm,
fear is that Grush is wrong. He's whatever. He's completely misled, and because of that, nobody cares about this topic again. But even though he might be wrong about the United States having a UAP recovery program, whatever, it doesn't mean the phenomenon isn't real and worthy of
yeah,
investigation. So it's overreach. The overreach might shut the door on this being a valid avenue of inquiry.
yeah,
That concerns
uh,
me deeply.
that
Yep.
that is concerning, right?
The
It
other thing
would
that
totally.
concerns me, sorry, I cut you off. But
No,
the other
no,
thing that
go for
concerns me is lost my train of thought. But I was quite concerned about something.
it.
um, I'll go on. It'll come back to me. What are you going to say?
I just think it's the classic boy who cried wolf tale, right? If he is wrong, and it will do a lot of damage to this investigation of this
Oh,
phenomenon, right?
I remember what I was concerned about is, yeah, let's say there is something resembling disclosure. I actually don't think our governments know much.
No.
And so they disclose what they know, and it's minuscule. And again, there is such a big nothing burger that this goes nowhere.
It's possible. And the other thing, actually, we talked about this before, is, I think of all the positives of this technology, right? But then I said to you, I keep forgetting the world is run by psychopaths, right? So it's like the weapons that are, if this is true, the weapons that could possibly come out of this,
Yes.
would make the nuclear bomb look like,
Yeah.
a pellet gun.
Let's game it out. I mean, let's say that they do have these craft. Let's say they actually do contain extraordinary technologies. Maybe they should keep it a secret. Is there a valid reason to keep any of this secret? I think there are several possibilities, but why? Maybe I don't want to know the truth if there a truth already exists. So one of the things I mentioned to you was, let's say this opens the door to unlimited free energy. That sounds fantastic, but there are a lot of people who can do a lot of horrible things for which the only barrier is a failure to access unlimited free energy.
Yes, absolutely.
That's one thing.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, um, who knows what other kinds of secrets have emerged from investigation into the phenomenon. If the phenomenon has been with us for millennia or not longer, maybe it's so intertwined with who we are and what we are that the truth is horrific. Are we ready for it? Does it challenge every religious thought that every human being has ever had? Does it challenge our nature, our understanding of what we are, who we are, and even the nature of death and transcendence? That's a little heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. I worry about the religious aspect most, because religion is very important to, I would say, the majority of the world population, in some way,
Yeah.
right? And it brings us comfort for the, afterlife and stuff like that. And I think disclosure, if that was through a wrench in that,
Sure.
you could have people that just literally go crazy, right?
Let's throw out a outlandish science fiction scenario. Again, people listening, I'm not saying I believe this. I'm saying this is just a scenario, that there is evidence that this intelligence manipulated the genome of a proto-ape millions of years ago and created us. Is that upsetting? Is that enlightening? Or does it have no effect on you? And if they did so, what was the purpose? Was it as an experiment, as a to harvest something from us? I don't know. But there are a variety. You can start to think deeply about some horrific possibilities about, again, why we exist and who we are, that maybe need to be kept secret.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know.
It's whether people are prepared to deal with the repercussions of, you know, everything we've ever known not being everything we've ever known. You know what I mean?
Would you prefer truth or would you prefer comfort?
I prefer the truth,
Yeah.
personally.
The
Yeah.
older I get, the more I prefer comfort.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what this all means.
It's hard to say, the unlimited free energy aspect, if we were looking at it just from how much it would help the planet scenario, right?
Sure.
We could almost, we could eliminate our need for fossil fuels.
Mhm.
And, air travel, for instance. Could you imagine being able to go from here to Australia in 20 minutes?
Sure.
It
Well, I
would
mean,
totally
how
change.
long would it take though to remake the
Oh, definitely not
civilization
in any of our
infrastructure?
lifetimes, right?
Exactly. So,
Yeah,
but there'd be hope.
absolutely.
There'd be hope at
There
least.
would be hope. Yeah. And just the fact that you could lift a lot of the third world out of poverty,
Sure.
right?
Third world. Talk about you and me.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah, yeah.
So let me ask you another question. If this turns out to be a big nothing, it turns out to be an actual secret Chinese program that's been
Mhm.
operating since the 30s somehow.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, will you be disappointed?
Uh, I think, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't be disappointed. I would be, because I do want my theory to be correct in a
Sure.
way. Um, but I think knowing the truth would also be comforting as well, because you know that it would give you the answers that we're all looking for, right?
Would you accept the truth?
Ooh,
If
that's a
like
tough
if
one.
yeah, if the Congress came back from a year-long investigation, said we've uncovered the truth. The truth is this is an actual military operation by this agency or this government going back decades,
Yeah.
and that's, would you accept it or would you say, well, that's the conspiracy?
I see, now that's the problem, right? Is if you're presented evidence that says the contrary, right? We
Yeah,
have to go with the evidence, right? Because then it's just a conspiracy. That's the problem with conspiracies is some of it is based in a little bit of truth, but the second
right.
evidence comes to
It's a tough
disprove
call.
you. Yeah,
Like,
it definitely, right?
look at the Roswell thing. I mean, they
Yeah,
provided
absolutely.
evidence that this was a balloon,
Yeah.
but you and I will both reject that evidence.
Yeah,
Like, how much
that's right.
evidence do they have to
That's
give before we say, okay, it's a balloon?
That's right. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the Bob Lazar stories
Oh
are an
man,
example of that, right? What a fall from grace there is, right? Um,
what do you think about Lazard? Is he credible?
I think perhaps he saw something. Um, maybe. I
I think
don't
he worked in a super secret place. I don't think he had the role he claims he had. He
No,
may have just
no.
been a guy who photocopied stuff.
Definitely did not have the
Yeah,
role he claimed. I don't believe he was ever on a craft. I don't
right.
believe any of that.
Neither do I.
And as the years go by, the evidence mounting that he never saw anything builds and builds, right?
Yeah. I think he may have seen something, but misunderstood what he saw.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, but
It
talk
could
about
have been.
as they talk about like comparing him to Grush, one's a credible witness and the other is not,
Absolutely,
and yet one provides direct evidence and the other hearsay evidence. Right. So
absolutely.
the credible witness only has hearsay. The non-credible witness has direct evidence, but we can dismiss him because no other parts of his story hang together.
That's right. That's right. Interesting. Yeah.
He's on Twitter this week. Did you see him? Someone interviewed him, said, "Bob, what do you think of all this?" And he all he says is, "Told you so," and walks away.
Yeah, I know, I know. Well, he did that too a few years back
Or did he?
when the Tic Tac
Ah,
footage got released, right? And he went on a big social media rant. They've ruined my life and this and that and now I'm redeemed, right?
so the
Uh,
element of this we haven't talked about is the abduction syndrome.
mhm.
And it's something I noticed that the congressional hearings have also shied away from, understandably so. And something the Lou Elizondos of the world. And by the way, people listening to this, I'm sorry that we're using the lingo and the names that everybody else who study this stuff are familiar with, but you can Google these names. Well,
Absolutely.
So the abduction syndrome obviously is people claiming to have been abducted by beings in a craft. I'm reticent to go down that hole.
Yeah, it's very you don't want to discredit anybody's pain or suffering,
Sure.
right? But that's an area where I would say mental illness could be a big factor there.
Not just mental illness, but misinterpreting real events. So,
Absolutely.
have you ever had sleep paralysis?
I have never my wife has had it a few times,
I've had it.
and
Yeah,
it's very real,
it's
right?
very
And
real.
absolutely, you could mistaken that as that.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't claim to understand what I experienced as a scientist with neurological training. I
Mhm.
understand the textbook explanation of. For me, it was a dark figure hovering over you that means me ill will. And I was wide awake at the time, right? So it's
Yes,
it's a real
yes.
experience. So I understand neurologically is something about turning off my gravity bearing muscles and the dream,
Mhm.
etc. Um, but the neurology doesn't explain everything about this. So that leaves a gap open to other interpretations.
Absolutely.
I remember I told my brother about my sleep paralysis experiences, and he didn't believe me. And then a couple of years later, he had his first sleep paralysis experience, and he experienced little gray aliens poking around his junk.
Wow. 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 And you know what? You know what? It could be um, some sort of delusion, right? That your
Yeah,
brain is creating, or it could be part of the phenomenon.
could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be all the enormous amounts of marijuana he was smoking.
It
I'm
could
sorry.
be. It could be, absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyway, but these are the things that are going to have to be addressed at some point if this process unfolds the way we both hope it does.
Yeah.
All of the side narratives must be reckoned with, and there are some uncomfortable side narratives as everyone tries to bring in their pet perspective. The
Yeah.
abduction syndrome, crop circles, all that stuff has to be folded in, unfortunately, because it would
Yeah.
be great. I mean, as you know, in the realm of UFO Twitter, people complain all the time about how come we're only talking about the nuts and bolts, the craft and things, because that's what we can access.
That's
That's the
right.
conversation we can have right now.
That's right. Absolutely.
If that doesn't go
That
anywhere, then we stop. You
that's
know?
right. Absolutely. I do wonder where it's going to go after the Grush testimony about he was kind of cryptic on, they asked him, I'm sure you watched, where, have humans been harmed by
Yeah.
this phenomenon? And he said yes. And he didn't really
Yeah,
stutter or,
that
it
that can
was,
mean so many things.
that's what I mean. It's so cryptic, right?
Yeah,
So I was kind of disappointed in that. It's like when you make a claim like that, I'd like to know
right.
where did that come from?
And you would think a
Are you saying
congressperson would have a follow-up question.
100%?
It
It's like,
reminds me of, are people hospitalized for COVID or with COVID?
yes, it's the exact same argument.
Yeah. It's like
Exact same
I was
argument.
driving along and I saw a UFO and I crashed my car. Was that the UFO harming me or because I'm an idiot and
That's
I crashed
right.
my car? Uh,
That's right. Absolutely. And oh well, you talk about the crop circle thing. I just I I I don't believe that at all.
yeah, I
I
don't
that
have an
is that
opinion.
is that is one aspect where maybe it's yeah. I don't
I've been
buy
I've been
that.
practicing some of the tenets of stoicism, and one of the tenets is you don't have to have an opinion on everything.
Hmm.
So I don't really have an opinion on that. I don't have an opinion
Hmm.
on the abduction syndrome because I don't
Yeah.
know enough about these things to have an
Yep.
opinion one way or the other.
Yep.
I do know enough about the UFO because I'm so
Yeah.
obsessed with it,
Absolutely.
and I have an
Yeah.
opinion there.
Yep.
But to go full circle in our conversation, this is what frustrates me about so many people piping up on Twitter about this is nonsense. I mean, you don't have to have an opinion unless you've
No.
engaged with the topic
That's
thoroughly,
right.
as you and
That's right.
I feel have to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
And
That's
even
right.
some of the skeptics have engaged with it and come away thinking this is nonsense, and that's great. At least
Yes.
you gave it a
Absolutely.
fair hearing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And expanding on that is the amount of people who were kind of interested in the phenomenon are now really going down the I hate saying the rabbit hole because
Yeah,
I just hate that term, right?
right.
Because it's been so
Or
uh,
rabbits.
yeah, and it's just used by the wrong people over the last couple years, right?
Yeah.
But for example, I was having a chat with my sister and my brother-in-law last night. They were over and we're in the backyard, and we started talking about it, and I said, here are some documentaries you have to watch, and
Phenomenon.
she's really yeah, the phenomenon was number one. I said to her, and yeah, I can't wait to hear her opinion after she watches it.
It's funny because I made my sister watch the phenomenon and my
Mhm.
spouse, and that's what they got them into the topic. And
Yeah,
both of them are kind of like, okay, what else you got? They want
yeah,
more,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they're
that's
not
right,
content to
exactly.
wait. It's like,
Yeah,
so I
that's
said, oh,
right.
here's another document you might want to watch on this particular event that happened in 1964. I said, well, that's not new. I want new. I'm sorry, I can't like produce documentaries every
Yeah,
week for you.
yeah,
This is an
that's right,
emerging story.
exactly, exactly. Um, People are shocked though how far back documented act. I was talking to my wife about the famous Italian downed craft, and
Mhm.
that's for example that something is there, right? So
Okay,
many.
it is something there. And here's some of the pushback against Grush is pretty much everything he claimed has been floating around UFO lore for decades. All
Yes,
things
yes,
we heard from the corners here and there. So maybe he's just new to the topic and suddenly is
perhaps.
hearing stuff and oh, this is but the counter narrative is that um maybe the UFO lore merchants just got it right for the decades.
Yeah, it's possible.
And it's
It's
finally
possible.
someone of credibility who can put it all
It's
together and
possible.
wrap it up in a good story. Which
Absolutely.
leads me to the next point. Someone told me is it's impossible to keep a secret of this magnitude. Well,
Mhm.
my response is the secret was not kept. It's
Yep.
been leaked multiple times over the decades. It's just that no one believed it.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
So-
Absolutely. Well, it came with grainy photographs and, people saying, "Oh, I saw something in the sky," and it was always dismissed, right? But
yeah.
I was actually shocked when they were talking about only about 5% of sightings get reported by these Navy pilots.
Yeah.
So how often is this happening? Is this happening every week, every day?
Okay.
Uh,
You make a very interesting point. I was thinking about writing a paper on what can the science of epidemiology do for ufology.
mhm.
Um, and the angle I was going to take is some of the concepts that we specialize in epidemiology have to do with the data bias. And an underreporting is a kind of information bias. You
Mhm.
can't take anything strong away from a report of only 5% of the phenomenon. The next thing is, I think I shared this with you. Ian Bremmer um, of the Eurasia Group had tweeted a map of UFO
Yes.
sightings, right? And
Yes.
showed that they
Yes.
almost all take place in the USA
Yeah.
or Western Europe.
Yeah.
And his response was, well, it's odd that UFOs only pop up in the Anglosphere. I'm like, well, no,
Yeah.
that's where the reporting happened, but
Absolutely.
because that's where the reporting infrastructure is. If you
That's
see
right.
a UFO in Chad or Mali, who are you going to call?
That's
Right.
right.
So
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
call that detection bias in
Yep.
epidemiology. And there's so much detection bias built into this. Um, and there's a lot of racism too. If you think about what is the stereotype of a UFO viewer, it's a Southern hick who's been
Yep. Yeah,
drinking
absolutely.
moonshine,
Who's been abducted, right?
who's been abducted and
Usually,
probed.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
You got to have the probing built in there.
Yeah, you have
It's
to add the
critical.
probing, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that annoyed me about the Bremer tweet was the assumption that the sightings must be uniformly distributed geographically. Why?
Yeah.
Maybe there is something about this country that they want to investigate. You don't know.
The way I see it, what if in these hotspots, so here comes to my theory, right? What if in these hotspots they are doorways per se
Sure.
to this dimension, right?
This has been
Skinwalker Ranch is my evidence for that theory, right?
right.
Why are there certain areas that it always happens in, right? It's
And again,
got
this
to
is
be
again for
something.
the viewers here. I know this is a science podcast.
Yeah,
Presumably, we're in the science fiction realm. Possibly, who knows? This is
yeah,
all speculative. But again,
absolutely,
leading back to the Oppenheimer experience, there might be something about nuclear explosions that has something to do
absolutely,
with them. And where did that
absolutely.
take place? I'd be curious to know if there's sightings above the Bikini Atoll or
Y-
Japan.
Yes, absolutely. It would actually be interesting. Was there UAPs flying, in the air when that happened, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely a good theory because there is a very strong relationship between nuclear bombs and
Mhm.
this phenomenon.
And nuclear sites like silos and so
Yep,
forth. Then
absolutely.
then there are the Foo Fighters, not the band, but the phenomenon. People don't know Foo Fighters were what UFOs were called during World War II because pilots would see them all the time and had no other name for them. So again, it's been with us for so long, and it
Absolutely.
might be delusion. It might be a natural phenomenon. It might be
Uh,
ball lightning or plasma or Bose-Einstein condensates. Who knows?
who
But
knows?
if it is, isn't that cool?
It is very cool. Absolutely.
Ah,
The first, I'm sure you're aware of the World War, was it World War II pilot?
maybe as
Oh,
one.
the UAP above Mount Rainier in
Oh,
the
right,
States.
that one. Yeah,
And that's a cool story because, back then the planes are nowhere near what they're capable of now.
yeah.
And for a pilot like that to see something there's something there, right?
You know what's creepy? How much you and I know the lore so well.
I know, I know, I know. I always get made fun of by my wife.
I'm not the only one. This is what it
Oh
sounds like
yeah.
when doves cry.
Yeah, that's right, right? Like it's so true. Well, she'll always say she's a big horror
Oh
movie
yeah.
fan, but scare very, very doesn't like UAP stuff.
That's too
And
real.
see, yeah, exactly, but we're the opposite, right? So she goes, "How can you watch this and sleep at night?" But then you watch any horror movie, and I
Right.
can't sleep at night, right? And
Yeah, I hear you. I hear.
yeah,
Interesting. It's kind of like professional wrestling. I love professional wrestling,
yeah, yeah.
and I know the history way too well. And I keep meeting random people who know it way too well also. So the UFO thing is kind of the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So I don't know how this is going to go. I mean, what I fear is that it's all scuttled pretty soon, and there are no subsequent hearings,
Mhm.
and all of this is buried again beneath the weight of stigma and the limited progress that's been made the last couple of years to open up investigation and avenues of inquiry is stifled again. Um, Even like when I post this podcast, I'm bound to get
Ye
pushback from my
Oh,
colleagues saying,
absolutely.
what are you
Absolutely,
doing?"
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But that's it's. I think at this point it's up to academics, so up to my people
Mhm,
to sort
mhm,
of open the envelope a bit to say this is a valid
yeah,
avenue of inquiry, and then
yeah,
for funding agencies to say, yeah, okay, let's investigate. Let's give you some money to investigate it at a small level, and it ends up going nowhere. Then so be it.
yeah.
But we funded stupider shit in the past.
Oh my god,
So
tell me about it. Let let scientists do science on this. It's just there is no downside to it. Let's just put
I
it that
will
way.
say though, I mean, I love watching the Skinwalker Ranch TV show. I
Oh,
just,
yeah.
I roll my eyes at the quote unquote science happening there.
Oh, boy.
It's just literally dudes firing shit in the air.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, absolutely.
there's no
I
systematic sequential data collection or iterative
None,
process here. It is
none, none.
frustrating.
I find it very, Oak
Yes.
Island-ish. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm
Um,
hoping that there's rigorous science happening in the background and they're choosing to simply broadcast the fun
yeah,
bits.
yeah.
But I don't know. I've got my doubts.
I don't know, yeah. I don't know. Absolutely.
Well, my friend, that was like an hour's worth, I think,
Oh, wow,
of
absolutely.
free flowing
Flew by.
conversation.
Yeah.
Um, for anyone who wants to send us hate mail, don't. You can comment under the comment section here on the YouTube channel, or you can find me on Twitter and send me hate mail there, and I'll block you. It'd be great. And if you enjoy this, give us let us know, and maybe we'll have a second conversation
Absolutely.
where we'll reveal what we actually know.
Yes,
But
that's right, exactly.
so thanks a lot, Mike. I will stop recording now.